Hey basketball coaches, today I'm going to talk about some of the most common mistakes that teams do when they're running a full court press defense. But first, really quickly, hit that like button and subscribe if you like basketball plays, drills, and skills, and go check out my dad's YouTube channel. We just recently went on a cruise. The link is down below. His channel is called Trip Reviews. Now let's get down to the clipboard and let's check out these basketball mistakes. So the most common basketball mistake that I see on the full court press is these players who are doing the pressing, they sometimes get just a bit too wide. The idea behind a press is to force the offensive team towards the sidelines and to trap along the sidelines. Preferably, in my opinion, would be in those locations right there. So if the ball was moving up this way down the court. Now, the reason why running too wide of a press is a hindrance on being able to be successful is if player one gets that ball, before he's able to dribble, if they were closer, they would be able to force that ball handler towards the sideline. Now, with them being too wide, player one is going to be able to get ahead of them, and they're going to be trying to play catch up to try and cut off that ball handler and to then force him towards the sideline. So by starting the press tighter, usually the width of the key, and then moving down to double team and to force that ball towards the sidelines, you're going to be a lot more successful with that press defense. And a lot of teams make this mistake. And I'm not going to blame the coaches. Sometimes it's just the players who get too wide. It's that at that point that coaches need to tell their players and to remind their players, we're trying to force towards the sidelines. And by being too wide, you're not doing anything. The next mistake that I see, I wouldn't necessarily call it a mistake. So the next mistake I see is by having the player getting trapped before half court. Now, this is a fantastic strategy to run. You can be successful doing this. However, if you're playing up against a team who is very skilled and they understand how to beat a press defense, by trapping too early, you are now moving the defense over towards that side of the court. And if they are able to reverse the ball and pass the ball quickly enough, player 4 on this side, once they pass and swing, he is going to be able to get down the court with very little pressure. If these players start moving over towards his side and trying to cut off and force him towards that side, what he needs to do is to look for the gaps between the players to then create a double team. And remember in three-man weave, how we teach our players to pass and then follow their pass. This is the reason why. Because now player 4 received that ball and he's going to be trying to force his way down the middle. That's going to be having players trying to trap him and force him towards the sideline. By player 5 now following his pass and going up that sideline, player 4 is drawn the double team. He's able to, or she is able to pass over to player 5, and now we may have a 1-on-1, a 2-on-1, or even a 1 or 2-on-0 situation. So if you're playing against younger teams, I suggest, yes, sure, you're able to trap before the half-court line, but if you find that you're still getting beat by the press or by the press break, or you're getting beat by the other team in this manner, that means that they are a more advanced team than you think you're playing against, and you really need to start trapping those players as soon as they get past half in those corners. And now there's a reason for this, if you don't know. So by having the press being forced upon and trapping him here, he is unable to do anything on this side of half. Once he is past half, he cannot go back, he cannot pass the ball back. He is trapped on this side of the court. Now, with him being against the sideline, for obvious reasons, he is not able to go out of bounds. Now, if he's getting double teamed in this corner, that means that he is unable to go anywhere. He's going to be picking up his ball and it's going to be a dead ball. Now, you're going to be then having your players spread out like a 2-3 zone almost, farther down court, but close enough so that there's no passes close by. Everything has to be far passes. Now, if this is the case and he tries to make a far pass, player 3 or 5 need to be able to pick that off, or player 2, and they should not be going for any ball fakes. This is how I like to run a press, because obviously it really does trap the players. At a younger age though, if you're pressing and you're allowed to press in like elementary school, grade 1 through grade 6, you'll usually get away with trapping a player along the sideline, because those players tend to be dribbling slower, they're passing slower, so by the time they get trapped along the sideline, think to reverse the ball and try to get the ball out of there if they're even able to by that point. That's when they start running into 8-second violations and you have become successful. But once they figure out how to bait the defense going towards that side and reversing the ball back around to attack the gap, that is when you need to then change your strategy to trap in these corners. Another mistake that I see a ton of with younger players is they're not playing low enough in defensive stance to be able to stay quick enough up front, or the coach may be putting slower players up front because they think that taller players are going to be able to block those long passes. I actually recommend having faster players up front and slower players in the back, because slower players are taller generally speaking and they're able to reach those really high Hail Mary passes, while the faster players are able to force that ball handler towards that sideline. I hope that this video helps you be able to beat more teams. If it does, hit that like button, subscribe. I would love to know what you're thinking, as well as any topics that you would like me to cover. Comment below and go check out my dad's channel, Trip Reviews. Link is down below as well.